What was like your first break? Like, did you write a screenplay and kind of just bug people, or
Yeah, first break. I did an independent movie called Runner,
right?
and that was in 2016. I think we went into production. Um,
Available
yeah,
on
and
Amazon Prime. Runner
yeah,
film
on Amazon Prime,
2018.
Mm,
and it. I had an angel investor, a
okay.
friend of mine who, had some money and wanted to make a film. And the best part about that whole experience was I was I was the perfect level of naive to do
Hmm.
it because the money that he put in, looking back, it was like I would say it changed my career path because whether you hated the movie, loved the movie, inconsequential. For me, it
Hmm.
gave me confidence because
Right.
now I could walk into a room and be like, "Yeah, I made one." And there's just not a lot of people that have made a feature film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it
You
was
know,
premiered at the famous Chinese theater. What's the name of the theater?
oh, the Grauman's Chinese Theater. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It was.
Really nice.
and
Yeah,
there was
we
like a
had a premiere there.
Q and
Had Q
A,
and
and
A, all
yeah, it
that
was the
stuff.
real
Yeah,
deal.
it was great.
Three balls, two strikes, pressure is on. This is where we discuss real estate, property improvement, and business. Together, we'll strategize on how to win. Welcome to the Full Count.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of Full Count Podcast. Today, our fearless leader, Andrew, is off selling houses or buying houses. Who really knows? But we do have a longtime friend of mine, Brian Randles. He's a writer, he's a director. We've been on a couple Viking quests together. And here we're going to talk to him and figure out what's going on in Hollywood right now.
All right, welcome, Brian.
Hey, thanks, guys. Chris, good to see you again, buddy. It's been
Likewise,
too long.
likewise.
Yeah,
It
man.
has been too long. Um,
Yeah.
for everybody who doesn't know, I lived in San Diego for quite a long time. And that's where I met Brian. He was neighbors with one of our other mutual friends. And he was very young and naive right out of college at University of Kentucky and ready to be corrupted by Southern California. And I remember, so the way it worked at the place we lived, my friend owned an apartment down on the first floor. He had an apartment. Actually, you were on the same floor as him at that time, I believe, because you were right
Yep.
his neighbor. You
Hmm.
eventually purchased or rented the place two floors above him. And then,
Hmm.
well, we went and deployed in the Navy, and I came back from deployment, and you were really on you were really about to make a life changing decision. You were going to take the very little you had to your name and head to LA, which is about 2 hours away, and just try to cut your teeth in the Hollywood industry. And I remember those decisions that you were making, and you were so happy that you got that apartment. Finally, you've been waiting for a long time to have that one bedroom apartment, and you're about to
Yeah.
just throw it all away and take the little you had, go up there, and little by little, you chipped away at the industry. Eventually, um, being able to direct and produce a film you've written, and now it's been several films and projects you've been a part of, and there's still work going on. But tell us a little bit about that journey. From really not the unknown, really the mystery, and then you just dove right in.
Yeah. No, for real. And if you remember, well, of course you remember, but the person that took my apartment when I left was Chris.
I was the
So he moved
benefactor.
in, yeah, right behind me. Chris and I
Hmm.
used to drink a lot of bourbon and play chess, and
Nice.
Hmm.
we had a good time. We were really close. And
Hmm.
San Diego, I was only there for 2 or 3 years, but very formative for me
Mm,
because, like you said, I left Kentucky and yeah, didn't have two pennies to rub together then, and still when I left San Diego to go to LA, I had even less somehow.
Hmm.
And um, yeah, so when I left, there's a whole crazy story about how I even got to San Diego, but I know we're on the
mm,
clock here and we'll keep it about LA. But long story short, I made the jump to go to LA because I had some friends that were in the industry. They were actors, and
mm,
they, we had hung out. I had made some trips to LA and made friends with them, and I felt a bit stuck in San Diego. It isn't quite what I wanted to do. Like I wasn't ready to kind of get the dog in the picket fence and settle down yet. which there is a Truman Show aspect to San Diego at times where you just feel like, if you're still young, which I was 25 at the time, it just wasn't enough for me yet. Now it sounds great, but
Yeah.
at 25, I was like, nah, this can't be the final stop. So I jammed up to Hollywood. I found an apartment. At the time, they were still somewhat affordable. And
This was what year, Brian?
so this was in 2010.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, 2009, 2010-ish, right around there. I can't remember exactly. And I found a place in Franklin Village, which you can Google Maps that. It's right there in Hollywood. And I got a roommate off Craigslist of all things. And because the guy that I was going to move in with, he bailed last second. And the guy I moved in with, great guy. He was coming from New York, and he was a page at NBC. You know what an NBC page is? You guys familiar with that?
Isn't it like he worked? Like I remember, didn't he work for like Oprah, and he was kind of like an assistant on the set? Is that what a page is?
Yeah, kind of. But you're kind of working. Like, did you ever watch the show 30 Rock?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember Jack McBriar's character, the country guy who's like always wearing the jacket? That was a page.
Okay.
So he was a page, and he left New York, came to LA, and he had his foot in the door more than me, if I'm perfectly honest. I got signed with some pretty low level agent as an actor, and that was fine. But like truly, I started working because of him, and he kind of had his hooks into some productions and producers already. So he got me jobs,
Nice.
driving trucks, getting coffee. Just the lowest of low levels.
I didn't realize he helped you like get into the industry. I do remember meeting him, and he was your roommate, but I didn't realize after you had got him on Craigslist that now this was your entry in to Hollywood. That's pretty crazy luck.
He was my entry into behind the camera. So if you got in front of the camera and behind the camera, most of my experience up until then was like acting and things, silly independent films or shorts. At that time, it was pre-SAG-AFTRA merger. So it's funny, back then there was like a loophole to get into the union where you could do what was called new media. You could just do like a fucking YouTube short and get your way into the union. It was insane. It was a wild time, and that's truly how I was a PA. That's the production assistant. Yeah, low level, but from PA, I became a coordinator, and then an associate producer, then a producer, and then executive producer, director. You just kind of, I worked my way through the ranks, and at a time in LA and Hollywood specifically, that was tumultuous to say the least. So, I mean, it was a wild ride. I would check in with Chris every once in a while and like let him know what was going on. But it just. I mean, you can ask me questions. I could probably give more detail, but it was a windy road, to say the least. To where I'm at.
So I guess, how did you go? You said you worked yourself up from the ranks, but what was like your first break? Like, did you write a screenplay and kind of just bug people, or how did that work?
Yeah, first break. I did I directed an independent movie called Runner. Right. And that was in 2016. I think we went into production.
Available on Amazon Prime. Runner film 2018.
And I had an angel investor, a friend of mine who, had some money and wanted to make a film. And the best part about that whole experience was I was the perfect level of naive to do it, because the money that he put in, looking back, it was like nothing. Like, it was not enough money at all. I basically didn't. I was impoverished for 2 years. I didn't pay myself. First mistake. Everything was favors based, and I made every mistake a first time filmmaker can make, and you can see it. I like the movie. It's my first one, so I'm proud of it because I got it finished and it's out there in the world, and we had distro and it got out there and right on. But man, I mean, that was roughly 10 years ago now, and the things I know now versus then it's just hilarious. But Yeah, I would argue, to your question, that was like the break where, you know, it was a question of like, all right, there's a scant amount of money, but probably enough to do it. Can you do it? And I kind of told myself, yeah, sure. Like, why not? Here's the chance. And it did. It changed. I would say it changed my career path, because whether you hated the movie, loved the movie, inconsequential. For me, it gave me confidence, because now I could walk into a room and be like, yeah, I made one. And there's just not a lot of people that have made a feature film.
Yeah, and it was premiered at the famous Chinese theater. What's the name of the theater?
Oh, the Grauman's Chinese Theater. Yeah. It was
really nice.
Yeah, we had a premiere there.
Q&A.
Yeah,
it was the real deal.
Yeah. It was great. Like, listen,
awesome.
I got lucky. I had a lot of people that, and still have a lot of people that are in the industry, and like we still are making stuff. I'm still working, you know, doing things, and like, but yeah, that runner, what it did for me ultimately was gave me confidence to say, oh, I can do pretty much anything. Yeah, I can do it. Yeah, it's okay. You know, and that's it. That's what it takes, because the fear of not being enough, or not knowing enough, or not whatever it might be, is pretty present through the entire process. But once it's done, like, man, it imbues you with this real sense of confidence that's been paramount to me staying in it and being successful. You know, it's been nice. Yeah.
And the film is about, that film in particular is about, like, you wrote it kind of about you, in a sense that the runner is it just means trying to run from the past. Necessarily your past catching up with you.
Like you can't escape from yourself. Like, there's kind of two main themes of it, but that's the first one. Like, there is no escape from yourself. So yeah, it's about a drug runner and like running a drug and all that stuff, but really it's about the emotional running from yourselves. But there's also the movie. It doesn't begin with this, but it's not like exactly the first line of dialogue, but it kind of is earlier on in the film. There's a quote from Frank Lloyd Wright, you know, the pretty famous architect. He says, turn the world loose, or turn the world on its side, and everything loose will land in Los Angeles. And I really love that quote. Like, I felt it was very personal to me and the people I'd met there. And the next line in the film is, it kind of questions the quote, and it says, so what made those people so loose? You know, were they running from where they were from, or were they pushed out? And it kind of an exploration on that. You know, again, it's a hyper indie movie made on a shoestring budget, so there's some pretty lofty concepts that I was trying to pull off that I can't say I did every time or executed to a T. Like, you know, but I know what I wrote, and I know what I was trying to accomplish in the final product. A lot of it comes from me being from Kentucky and coming to LA and finding yourself and all that stuff. So
and you worked on a lot of different projects and from different roles, but there's another one I know that you were very proud of, and it's also personal to you in the sense that it's about your grandfather. He is a World War II vet from the beaches of Normandy. There's some cameos in there with the famous General Patton, his daughter, who you become quite familiar with. And what really inspired you is you went with your grandfather with some other vets to Europe, and you realized that they were basically celebrities over there. And that kind of inspired you to talk about, I guess, how would you summarize it? Talk about the relationship the remaining, or the Europeans have with the American World War II vets. Like, what would you summarize the?
Sure.
Yeah.
I got what you're saying. So the doc's called One of Many, and my grandfather never talked about his time in World War II, but towards the end of his life, he passed away this year. He was 99. He would speak with my cousin, who, if you watch the doc, I actually have my cousin play him as a younger man, because they look very, very similar to each other.
Eerily, he did a great job.
He crushed it. It was great. Yeah, it's really fun. I would argue one of many was way better received than Runner, and because it's like you really boil it down, it's my grandpa, an old veteran, just talking, and he's cute and sweet, and how you not gonna like, how you not gonna like that?
Right.
We built it for like History Channel or TLC kind of vibes. But what I didn't know, and then the origins of that piece was my cousin at the time was like, "Hey, I'm going back over to Bastogne, where the Battle of the Bulge was, with Grandpa. Do you want to go?" And at the time, I had just wrapped I do a lot of television shows as well. I just wrapped a television show, and I had some free time, and I was like, "Fuck it, yeah, let's go!" Like, I'd love to just go and be a part of it. And I told him, I was like, I might film some of it. And I brought this little shotgun rig, and I was really just going to make like a home movie for my family. Cause like, why not? He was already, at that time, he was roughly 94, 95. So we already thought he was kind of on his way out, and kind of a last chance to capture some of his life and all that stuff. So we went, and what I found, Chris, and it was there, especially in Bastogne, where the Battle of the Bulge was, they are still very much grateful for what the American soldiers specifically, I mean, the Allies, yes, but the American soldiers specifically did to liberate them, from German control. And like, to a degree that really no American citizen, at least currently, probably understands, because it's not here. We're not surrounded by it. There were no battles fought here. So I got, for example, I walk into a bar and my grandpa's picture's on the wall.
Huh.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's crazy.
Amongst others.
Yeah.
And we're there during like the actual anniversary. So like, there are people dressed up as soldiers, and like there's American flags everywhere, and with Belgian flags. And again, mind blowing for somebody who just wasn't privy to all that. And so I fired it up. I just started filming, and I, got some interviews and got some cool footage. And then when I came back from the trip, I was kind of going through stuff, and I kind of reverse engineered the doc out of that. So I had all this cool footage, and I kind of saw how much that town embraced my grandpa and other vets. And then from that, I kind of went back. I got my grandpa finally to talk about some of his stories. And then I did recreations, with my cousin playing him, and filmed all that and made that look cinematic and cool. And and that was really how the doc was built. And
wow. It was cool. Your cousin was definitely from Kentucky. And I remember this is at a time when we were like locked down for COVID. And he wasn't allowed to get into any of the bars because he didn't have his passport. And poor guy. Yeah, it was. And my dumb ass, because not every bar was that stringent in LA. My favorite bar at the time was this one off La Brea, and I was like, oh, let's go there and for a little post screening party. And he you had to have your proof of vaccination, and he wasn't vaxxed. He wasn't going to get vaxxed, and so he couldn't get in. So poor guys. I finally convinced, like, we went in, had a drink, and then I got everybody to go over to the next door bar, which was not as insane as that other one. And we had a good old time after that, and it was great. But dude flies all the way out from Kentucky for his premiere and can't even get into the after party. COVID was fucking wild. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a wild time.
So now that you've we've kind of talked about your background and everything, obviously you're in a different chapter in your life right now. You've kind of left LA the same way I've left San Diego. I'm in Atlanta. You're in Nebraska now, obviously, but you're still doing projects here and there. There's been a lot of changes in the country, in the world, in the past 5-6 months. When you look at what just went down with the wildfires, which we covered on a previous episode, and what are the implications you see? Are there going to be any major changes in California? Do you think they're going to vote different? Do you think that Hollywood's going to open up the budget for some films that they otherwise, wouldn't have 6 months ago? Do you think that there's going to be this change to the reaction of, America?
I hope so. LA, the fires were such a perfect metaphor for how dysfunctional LA has become. And this is coming from somebody who I really didn't want to leave. Yeah, I'm in Omaha right now, but I just had a baby. So we came, so we're in Omaha because her family is from here, and our leaving was more personal than it was let's get out of LA. Right. She was over it, but my partner, sorry, but I was still a pretty staunch defender of LA and Hollywood, and still am. I've got love for LA. I'm at the end of the day, I'm more of an optimist than a pessimist, so I do believe it'll bounce back. And
right,
LA offered me so much opportunity and a lot of good things, and was a very, very I lived there for 13 years roughly, and the memories I made, the stuff I've done, who I became, I wouldn't change it for the world.
Right.
But once you step outside of it, and even me just being in Omaha for 6 months, you get out of that bubble and you kind of realize how much of a bubble it is.
Yeah.
And you're grateful to be out, because and it doesn't mean we won't go back, but it's like, at least you can kind of see it. You can kind of see it a lot more than when you're in it, because when you're in it, there is this subconscious need to defend it, because you have to pad your own narrative as far as the choices you've made and why you've done so. And it makes it very hard to see what is actually wrong, or allow yourself to see it, because you're still I can tough it out. It's still the best place on earth. It's is it? I don't know. So to your question, is it going to change? I think in 26, when the mayoral race happens, they need to go in a new direction. If the candidates aren't, I don't know who's going to, I think Bass announced she was going to run again, but I don't know if she's confirmed that. And I don't know if Caruso's coming back to run.
I think he's hinted that he was. Obviously, I think he's going to capitalize on the moment.
I hope so. Yeah, they should, in my opinion, vote for somebody, if not Caruso, if he doesn't run, somebody different, because it just doesn't make sense. The it's too much of an asset to let it literally burn.
Yeah.
Right.
It burned. I'm literally here in Omaha watching it on TV. I'm having an out-of-body experience. Just part of me felt like I should be there, just to, it's my city. I was like, oh man, fuck. It felt weird to watch it from a safe distance on television.
Yeah.
But I was so grateful to do it with my daughter in hand, instead of freaking out worrying about the air quality and what the hell's going to happen with cost of living and whatever else. So
it's interesting you pointed that out, because obviously living in Southern California a long time myself, I used to have family text me and go, hey, are you okay? And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, well, there's fires. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's just, there's fires all the time. I'm fine. There's nothing going on. And so when that was happening, I had asked my wife, I said, hey, is this a real thing, or is this just another, we're in Atlanta, we're seeing this news report, is it really that bad? And she was like, no, it's bad. And so then I started looking into it a little bit more, and obviously everybody's got egg on their face, it seems like, from the government over there. Now, if you remember, I believe it was 2018 when Newsom, we had the recall, and then obviously the wrong front runner was leading. You don't have to go to the opposite extreme, you can just go someone, I don't know, moderate, and to challenge them. And I feel like, to me, I just feel like this inevitable thing is going to happen where basically I think that they're going to put someone similar to Newsom to replace him as governor in 2026. Obviously there's hints of it being Kamala, which is, basically the same thing as Gavin Newsom in that regard. And so I would be interested to see if the voters do go a different direction. Who really knows at the end of the day until it happens.
Yeah.
But I think that it's possible that Caruso, who really knows? I would be surprised though if the voters have learned anything from this other than my house is on fire.
Yeah.
Like,
It's hard to know. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I talked to a lot of people, and obviously everybody's frustrated. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter what side of the aisle you're on, like
Yeah.
left, right, middle, doesn't matter. You're frustrated. You see it now. If you didn't see it
Mhm.
before, you definitely see it now. Now, the ultimate question is like, how long is their memory? Because like when it's time to vote
Yeah.
again, what the hell else is going to happen over the next 18 months or whatever it is
Right.
that will make them totally forget about the fires? I mean, I don't know, but yeah, we're at least right now, February 23rd. I don't think there's an Angelino that's not like at least admitting vocally, which is important. Just got to remember that didn't readily happen. But now after the fires, they're a little more open about speaking truth to. I guess speaking truth to power. Like in LA, what happens is, again, you kind of get into this, especially if you're in Hollywood or, you just drink that LA Kool-Aid, you get into this weird muscle memory of like, you don't ever question or go rail against the powers that be, or the kind of the ruling party, which is obviously the left. And it's not that you did it out of fear. I don't really think
Right.
so. I think it was, again, it's just more this idea that how could you question the best place on earth, which is such a mind-numbing concept, but it's like the beaches, the weather, the people, the wealth, the access to opportunity, blah, 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 blah. You add all this stuff together and you come out with the result of Los Angeles as a place. So while you're there, it's like this weird thing is like, if you talk shit on it, it's like it looks as if to the person you're speaking with as if you're not doing enough to make it, or you're not doing enough to do what it takes to be successful here, because it is the place to be. It's paradise on earth. And I think that drove a lot of people to become, like the frog in the boiling water, that like the temperature just keeps on raising, and you don't even have the capacity to exclaim like, hey, this is getting hard, or this is not going in the right direction, or it isn't what it used to be.
Well, there are examples though of people in Hollywood, even successful people, where they did speak out. I think a good example is Gina Carano, I believe, from she was on The Mandalorian. They just like took it right off. They were not playing around with her, and
that
it was, like,
I think
over.
that type of shit. Yeah, I mean that was, what was that, 3-4 years ago now? I think a lot of that stuff is done, like with Trump winning and the fires and the clear mismanagement of Newsom and Bass. Like, I just can't imagine a world where that kind of shit still flies. Like at the time, it made sense. You got to remember too, all the other stuff that was going on. There's the Me Too movement and all the justifiable changes that were happening in the town. But there's a course correction, that's occurring right now. So it's like, I just can't imagine the stuff that went down 3 or 4 years ago would happen during this climate. And Hollywood, honestly, is in no position to be that closed-minded, because I mean, look at where you are. Chris, you're in Atlanta. You know how much work Atlanta has taken from LA? Oh my! I worked in Atlanta last year, like, and I'm heading. My stuff that I've got going on right now is in Paris. Like, I've worked more outside of LA than I have in LA, and I'm for sure not the only one.
Do you know what's interesting? And obviously the phrase "shut up and dribble" does kind of make me cringe a little bit, because I feel like people should have their voice, and but I do think every individual needs to have that own responsibility, because it can affect your work. a good example is, have you seen the new series on Netflix, Zero Day, with Robert De Niro?
No,
Hmm.
I need to watch that. Yeah, was it good?
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but the thing is that he's a president in it, right? So when I first started watching it, it was really hard for me to like separate how much he didn't like the current president, and then now he's playing a president. It seems kind of narcissistic in a way, right? And it
Yeah,
took me like one or two episodes, and finally, my wife said something to me that really was able to let me like detach that whole thought from it, which was she said, yeah, apparently he wanted to do a project in New York, so he just took like the first project he could do. And when she said that to me, it allowed me to separate him wanting, proactively wanting to be a president, just to show, I created this own narrative in my head based off of what he's been saying, on TV. And it really made me think like, damn, I really wish Robert De Niro wouldn't have been so vocal politically, because I do enjoy him as an actor.
sure.
Obviously he's one of the greats, and it kind of ruined the beginning of that for me because I just couldn't get it out of my head that he's up here being a president, trying to show everybody that he can be president and this is what it should be like, and
Yeah,
and so I feel like people should, artists should recognize that, if you go too far with it, it can affect your art.
it can, and like, and at the end of the day, to what your wife said, like, he's still an actor. It's a job. You show up, do your work, you go home. Just like me, like if I were to act again in something or anything I produce or direct or whatever, at the end of the day, they're jobs. Like they don't define you fully. Yeah, they're a part of you. Like what you do for work is a part of who you are, but it isn't all that you are. And so, but yeah, to be front facing, like as much as De Niro is, like carrying a project like that, and I'm sure, like him being as outspoken as he is, as politically minded as he is, I'm sure it took you out of it, given all this transpired. I get it. I get it. It is. We're living in a weird time where everything kind of is muddled and kind of intertwined. So like, social media has, I'm not going to say it's killed the idea of a movie star, but it's changed it irreparably, forever. So now, is that good? Is that bad? I don't know, but like it definitely changed the model. And in my opinion, the on a optimistic side, I think social media and the internet have stripped away the power of celebrity in a positive way. Because I mean, you guys are, I think, closer to my age. Like, you remember growing up, your teenage years, the idol worship, and
Yeah.
I think you remember all the magazines and the TV shows, all
Hmm.
driven around like celebrity culture. And you realize like
Hmm.
actors they're just people, man.
People.
It's just people.
Yeah.
Just that's it, and they don't need to be like. Yes, they're important, and like especially when you're making something, you can't do it without them. But like, let's take a step back on like the grand scale of like what we value as a society.
Yeah.
Right.
Is actor top of the heap? Probably not.
Mhm.
Why? Yeah, yeah. It just shouldn't be that high up. But that's coming from somebody who, man, you put in a good performance. Like, there's nobody who likes actors more. So it's like
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
that weird thing for me. It's like I know on
Absolutely.
the macro scale what it's supposed to be, but I
Mhm.
get it. Hollywood is it's a magical place at times, and
Yeah.
it can wrap you up. Yeah.
Who would you say your idol or like role model is in Hollywood?
Oh, in Hollywood?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Anthony Bourdain.
You know what? Chris is not even that. I don't think Chris is wrong. Like,
Okay.
so right now I'm making a travel show, and
Right.
like I said, I do films and all, but I also do reality TV and I do documentaries and unscripted. I've really gravitated more to unscripted of late, and I'm doing a travel show that's going to be kind of Bourdain-esque, and
Nice.
you know, I would say he probably had the most profound effect on me as a storyteller. Um, I really, really liked, all of his shows, and was so deeply saddened when he passed away. Um,
Mm.
And you met him.
on my No, you know what? That's so funny. So remember that guy we were talking about, my roommate?
Hmm.
He met him, and if you go to my Instagram, you'll see a
I
picture.
thought there was a picture of you and him
No. It's so
Wow.
my roommate had held up. He got Bourdain to write "Hi Brian" on a sheet,
Mm.
like on a piece of paper, and like held it up and he took a picture and he sent that to me. And that's
That's
like one of
awesome.
my. So no, I actually never met him.
Oh, okay.
If he had still been with us, I'm sure at this point
Yeah.
I would have. But
Right.
yeah, he passed away. I mean,
Oh.
I can't remember how long ago it was now. Probably.
It was like the Me Too movement. It was like 2018, 19. Something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. It's been about 6 years. So yeah, I don't think Bourdain is far off when it comes to storytelling. But as far as like
Mhm.
film, I mean, God, man, I'm kind of cliche as anybody. I like Scorsese and Tarantino as much as the next guy, and I grew up on those movies. There are certain actors that I still love. I'm not as enamored with actors as I am directors now.
Right.
It kind of shifts, especially when you start making more
Mhm.
stuff. You just see things you watch films in a different way.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
kind of for me, I'm pro Tarantino being like forced into slavery to make like 2 more movies, 3 more movies. When I kind of brought this idea up to Brian, he definitely gave me some backlash and empathy regarding how much it takes out of him to do one, but I'm just
Yeah.
not
It's
satisfied
insane.
with him doing one more.
Dude,
Right.
you got to think, if you do the math on that, he's done, this will be his 10th, right? This will be
Mhm.
number
Mhm.
10. It takes him 3 years to do one. That's 30 years of the man's life. Or sorry, 3
Yeah.
years to do one. 3 times
Crazy.
10 is 30 years.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
Jesus.
Worth it. Worth
Yeah,
it.
I mean, like, look at the catalog. Like, I mean,
Right.
if I follow the same model, I'll be on a comparable track where maybe I'm doing one every 4 years.
Mm.
So if I do 10, that's 40 years. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's a life. That's a
Yeah.
full,
Exactly.
I mean, that's a full life, people retire at 65 and it's done. So like, yeah, like the fact that he even has given us 10 is like,
Mhm.
Jesus, like we don't owe us a goddamn thing.
Yeah,
He's
he
doing
does.
them because he wants to make them. And like, yeah, so I think Sony's got him now. Like Sony's smart enough to pay him all the fucking money he wants to do them well. But yeah, it takes a lot to make a movie, and it does not matter the budget. You could have
Right.
no money or all the money. It's the same problems. Usually, when you have more money, the problems are just they're at a scale that's unbelievable
Yeah.
and almost silly at times because you're
Yeah.
just dealing with things that just the common man can't
Yeah.
like really relate to. But yeah, like I don't know, on the Tarantino thing, like, dude,
Yeah.
I can't wait. Whatever he makes
12,
is gonna be great.
12,
Yeah.
13.
If
What
he
was
does
that
12,
project? What was that project that that was kind of like a flop that he was a part of? I think it was after Jackie Brown. It was before. It was right before Inglorious Bastards.
Oh, hold on. It was with
It's
Kurt
like
Russell.
Demon or something like
Man,
Devil
it's
Wheels.
yeah, it's Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I don't know.
I know it. Hold on, let me a second. Death Proof.
What's it called?
Death Proof.
Death Proof.
Okay.
And so I was actually listening last night to an interview that he had, or it was actually somebody talking about him, where he was asking them like, do I have to climb a Mount Rushmore every time I do a film? And then he's like, no, I think I figured it out. And then he released that. And then he was like, I guess I got to climb a Mount Rushmore every time I do this. You know what I mean? And because he was competing with Paul Anderson, Paul T. Anderson or something. Who's the other?
Anderson? Yeah.
Paul Thomas Anderson. And I personally think I like Tarantino's movies more, although obviously There Will Be Blood, great film. But there's a recent, the most recent Paul Thomas Anderson with Daniel Day-Lewis. It's about like a dressmaker. This just not. I'm sure it's a great movie. I haven't seen it.
Thread.
Yeah.
Phantom Thread. It's
Phantom
good.
Thread.
I liked it. Yeah, I actually liked it a lot.
I would say that the content, what it covers, doesn't interest me as much as a Tarantino movie would. So I'm sure if I watched it, I would like it. But it's like a romance drama, not normally something that a genre that I would watch. Although I love Daniel Day-Lewis.
You'd like
so
it.
Sure,
it's a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worth a watch. Like,
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, like those when you really got the masters like making stuff, just
Mhm.
just check whatever your tastes are at the door
Yeah.
and try to
Right.
just receive the film as what it is. And like, Phantom
Yeah.
Thread based on a trailer is probably not
Mhm.
something you would gravitate to, but
Right.
you kind of settle in and get into it. It's like, oh, this is a
Mhm.
good movie.
It's
Because
good.
like there
Okay.
are filmmakers that are just they're really
Right.
good at what they
Yeah.
do, and then
Nice.
you want to feel. I think a good filmmaker, and I'm still, you know, Tarantino's what in his 60s. Like
Right.
I'm objectively a neophyte in the in the game, so
Yeah.
like it takes time to really kind of craft who you are as a storyteller and a filmmaker, and you want to feel. I think when you're watching a movie, you kind of want to feel like the director's leading you or in control,
Mm-hmm.
and like
Mm-hmm.
you're in safe hands to like be taken on a ride.
Mhm.
Right.
And I think those guys can do it in a way
Mm.
that's and also they have the resources and the
Of
name
course.
to
Yeah.
do it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But like watch fucking watch
Yeah.
Phantom Thread, bro.
I
Yeah.
will.
It's good.
Yeah.
I will.
I'll take
You
a look.
know,
So
my oh, go ahead.
I know we're coming up on time, Chris.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's all
Yeah.
right.
And I gotta
Yeah, let's
go.
get to
Brian's gotta
it's all
go.
good.
But I guess two questions for you, Brian. So one
Yeah.
is, what advice would you give somebody trying to break into that industry? So like, for example, my
Mm.
younger brother, he's
Okay.
big into movies and like wants to get into that industry similar to you.
Sure.
And then two, what would you say was your full count moment? So full count moment as in where, rubber hit the road. It was a make or break moment. It was either going to kind of make you or break you entirely and change the trajectory of where you were going with your life, with your career. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I get it. So the first question, what would I do advice wise? Understand that the world has changed. You do not, in my opinion, need to go to a New York or a Paris or an LA to like break in. You know, the just like it's happening in DC, it's happening in every other, major city center. I believe the world's becoming a little more decentralized.
Right.
And, you can read into that all kinds of ways. But what that means is, too, the access to being able to do things like this has also kind of dissipated to pretty much everywhere thanks to the internet. I mean, look at this podcast, for example.
Right.
You're doing it, and you're not. Are you? Where are you? Are you in New York? You got all that New York shit.
I'm in
behind you?
Tampa, actually.
You're in Tampa.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm from New York, but
Yeah, no
in
worries.
Florida now.
Yeah,
warmer weather.
I'm in. Well, was in LA, but now in Omaha. Chris
Right.
was in San Diego, now Atlanta. You're in Tampa.
Right.
Like, location is it's so funny. God, I remember in my younger, like, just out of college years, I knew some friends that they went to school at Berkeley, and I went to a party once, and the first thing I saw, I walked in, and on the fridge it said, "Location is a social construct."
Right.
This was in 2008. Like, but they were right.
Yeah,
Like,
it is
the head of the game. I mean,
Yeah.
people Berkeley is obviously not in the highest of favor right now, but there's still a lot of smart people that go there, went there, whatever. And to that, what I'm saying and what I'll say to your little brother is, location is a construct. So just start making shit. Understand that the world is coming from you. So just create your world. He's got a fucking smartphone. Fire it up, tell your story,
exactly
and
what I tell him. Okay.
put it online. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I would probably say that advice is cliche, because I think a lot of the younger generation understands that. I certainly did not.
Right.
I came from Kentucky and kind of drank that Kool-Aid of like, I got to go to LA and make it and all that stuff.
Different time though. Different time.
Way different time. And like, yeah, you could argue that I made it, but I think honestly making it is the realization that there is no making it. It's just you're making it if you get to continue to do what you like. And if you really enjoy storytelling or making films or whatever he's into, just start. There is no gatekeeper that's sitting there at the front gates of Hollywood saying, no, you can't. It's like, bro, wherever you are, just start making stuff. So
do it.
You can give him my number. If he's making stuff, just tell him to hit me up too. I'll tell him the same thing.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Then the second question was the full count moment. Oh, it was okay. I was making Runner, and we were shooting up in the Hollywood Hills, and I got basically gifted this location. If you ever watched the movie, it's you can throw a still up from the film, but there's a poker scene, and in the poker scene, we're in the Hollywood Hills, and it's kind of this tense moment when the guy, the character's name is Sal. He watched the movie, but he goes back to an ambulance of all things, and he gets hit over the head with a bottle. Watch the movie, that'll all make sense, but that's what happens. Anyway, we're filming that scene, and it starts to rain. And that's not, I didn't have a rainmaker like sitting there and like all that stuff. It just happened to start raining. And again, no budget. We're already well into OT. So like overtime is like the death blow to a lot of films. I don't know if you guys know that, but like once you hit a certain hour, it's like your budget just got exploded. So, and our actors were tired and uncomfortable and, all the stuff you've been shooting all day, and then it starts raining. And well, I had this moment where I'm literally wearing a garbage bag like over me to keep like the rain off. We're out, and I remember I was like looking out over the hills, and I just was like, we're never gonna get this shot. Like we're just never gonna get it. Like we should just call it a night and pick it back up another day. But I had a producing partner at the time, and he was green. Green's not even the word for it. He was just fresh as fresh could be, but he was very optimistic and kind of happy-go-lucky and very supportive. And he just came over and he was like, "You can do it, man. You can do it. We got this. Don't worry about it. I know it's late, but you got it." And like it was just that little nudge of positivity just from a crew member that had my back. Again, his knowledge of film and all that stuff was not like next to nothing. But it didn't matter. I just need somebody to say, "You can do it, man." And that little nudge, we ended up shooting for like 2 or 3 more hours, and we got the shot. It actually is one of my favorite shots of the movie because of the rain. It looks crazy and it's fun. And I remember just that positivity kind of pushed me over the edge. And from there, it kind of propelled me to stay in it. Just know that, I can finish this damn thing. And there was like 1,000 more hurdles after that night. I would tell your brother, if he ever makes a film, one of the best pieces of advice I can give him is the edit is way more arduous than the actual production. So get ready for that. But yeah, that was probably my full count moment. Just that night in the rain. Yeah, sometimes you just need somebody there to say, "Hey, keep going."
Hey, thank you so much for sharing that. That's awesome. I like that positive note.